Hello, my beautiful friends. I am Laurel Bleadon-Maffei with Illuminating Souls, welcoming you to this episode of Sleepy Bedtime Blessings, a podcast designed to help you rest, relax, and fall asleep while deepening in your connection with your beautiful team of angels who love you so. I am an angelic practitioner, a spiritual teacher, and an encourager of souls. And I have the most wonderful job. I get to help you connect with your angels and the wisdom of your soul. And I offer one-on-one angel sessions, which are lovely. They're 1-hour sessions and take place over the phone. We start with an opening prayer. I use angel oracle cards and I also channel for you. And so my intention for each session is to help you deepen in your awareness of your own divine guidance. I also offer soul mentoring, which allows for consistent support as you move through a time of growth and transition. And then I offer a wide variety of classes that will inspire your spirit. About every 6 weeks or so, I have a new class. My classes are usually small in size, so that means that you will get to be supported and loved and mentored. You will not get lost in the crowd. So I invite you to go on over to my website, illuminatingSouls.com, where you can sign up for my mailing list. And then you'll be in the know about everything I have going on. But for now, the angels and I are here to help you come into a lovely space for resting and replenishment and hopefully sleep. So this podcast is inspired by 2 of my favorite forms of self-care, connecting with the angels and listening to sleep podcasts. I first discovered the genre of sleep podcasts by accident in 2015 when I found my way to Andrew Ackerman's podcast, Sleep With Me, which is a wonderful podcast. I highly recommend it. I stumbled across his podcast in one of the iTunes charts as I was looking for different podcasts to listen to. And he, at the time, was creating 3 episodes a week, which is a phenomenal amount of content. And he would talk in what he calls soothing, dulcet, creaky tones. And I found it worked for me. I had reached a time in my life where it was getting harder to fall asleep. For much of my life, I fell asleep with the television on, and that would be how I dozed off. But it started not working as well. And so I started listening to his sleep podcast, and I found I almost never was awake by the end of the episode. And his episodes were just amusing enough to keep me engaged, but also kind of boring and rambling so that it wasn't so compelling that I had to stay awake. So his was the first podcast that I listened to as a sleep podcast. And then I discovered that there were many more, including one of my favorites, The Sleepy Bookshelf. I just finished listening to all 15 hours of The Enchanted April, which I highly recommend on The Sleepy Bookshelf, as well as Sleepy with Otis Gray. And I thought to myself, just like love songs, we can never have too many love songs. We can never have too many sleep podcasts, and so I created this one. And now here we are, over 150 episodes later. And it is my blessing and honor to be here with you. So how this works is we're going to be together for about an hour. That's my preference as a listener. I love episodes that run long because then I don't feel pressured to go to sleep too quickly. There are some podcasts that I love, but they're only 20 minutes long. And I always feel so nervous that I will not be asleep by the end because I feel like it's a very lonely experience to be awake when a podcast ends, when you were hoping to be asleep. So these episodes are about an hour. And there's two parts. The first part is the one we're in now, which is where I ramble a bit with you. We're going to talk about a few spiritual concepts. I'll bring the angels in. And then the second part is where we go into story time. And story time might be stories from my own life. I might read to you something that's in public domain. We might flip through the pages of an old cookbook or a TV guide and reminisce together. So there's always something. And if you are using this as a sleep tool, I encourage you to turn the volume down a bit lower than you might if you were listening to an audiobook. I find that really helps if I have to reach a bit for the narrative. And I also know that many of you listen during the daytime, that I get to keep you company as you go about your day. And in that case, I invite you to turn up the volume and we can be together. However you are using this podcast, I just want you to know that I love and appreciate you. And if you are enjoying it, if you would be so kind as to leave a review on iTunes, that would be wonderful. So I invite you to get comfortable, to cozy on up and snuggle on in. As I call in the angels to be with us, they are already here, but I love the ritual of sharing them with you. So let's take some nice deep breaths in together and release. Just allowing your body to relax and receive the love that is here for you. And beautiful angels on high, I invite you to join us here. And I ask that you infuse this broadcast with waves of love, with compassion, with light, and with healing in service to each of our beloveds gathered here with us now. And I ask, angels, that you bring forward a lightness of spirit to assist each one of us in our cycles of creation, to bless the dreams that are in our hearts, to help ease our burdens, and to help us remember who we are as divine beings in human form. And dear ones, just take some nice deep breaths in and then just release. So as we are spending this time with the angels, I thought we could talk a little bit about this experience that is rather common. So as we are spending this time with the angels, I thought we could talk about an experience that many of us have. And Abraham Hicks has a wonderful term for it. They call it the gap of creation. And perhaps you've heard me talk about it before as well, but I wanted to share with you about it because I am in it. And often when I am in the midst of an experience, it is a wonderful time to bring in angelic wisdom for this, because I find oftentimes what is happening for me can be mirrored for many of you as well. We seem to go through these cycles together. So what the gap of creation refers to is that expanse of time and space between when a dream or a vision comes to us and incubates, and then that expanse that happens between that moment of the seeding and then when we birth the dream into 3D reality. So I would imagine that many of you, like me, you are a champion daydreamer. Because I often find those of us attracted to this work, we have a gift of visioning, imagining, and seeing beyond what is happening in linear 3D reality. And that often can show up with daydreams, visions. It would be so cool if I did this, or this project would be amazing, or maybe one day I'll travel over here. It's as if our consciousness finds it easy to expand beyond this moment. And as energetic beings, that part is wonderful. But being here on the earthly realm, there can be a lot of steps and efforting and evolution that needs to happen to go from the vision to the reality. And that is the gap of creation. And I don't know about you, but for me, that's the part that often feels really hard, because the gap of creation is where challenges arise, where we might have to learn new skills, where we might have to overcome obstacles, where we might have to evolve or grow something within ourselves to be ready for this new experience. And so I am in the kind of cool yet messy part of the gap of creation right now. I have this beautiful creative project I've been working on that I will be ready to share with you about soon. So the vision of it got me so excited. And the beginning creation part of it had me deeply engaged and jazzed. And I was learning new things and I couldn't stop working on it. I was so excited. So that whole part of it had felt so graceful. And I was all in. And I still am all in. But in this moment, I'm in the technical part of things, the part that doesn't feel inspiring and light and fluffy. This is the part that feels a bit tedious and challenging. And usually this is the part where I stop, because I don't like stuff that's hard. And I don't mean to make it sound like this is really, really hard. I just mean this is not the part where I'm delighted every day and I'm excited and I can't wait to work on it. This is the part where it feels a little more like work. And I have not had a great relationship with work in my life. I like things that are easy. And that might sound a little crazy, because who wouldn't like easy? But I really like easy. And so I was just thinking about that this morning, that I'm in the part of my creation cycle when things start to get very real and more attention is required in the 3D world. And that is where I often feel my energy pulling back, but I am really committed to this endeavor and I'm excited about it. And so I'm not letting my foot up off the gas. I'm continuing to move forward. And so I wanted to share that with you. If you are a daydreamer, if you find it very easy to connect with inspiration, but it is much harder for you to implement your visions in the world, that is the messy part of creation called the gap of creation, named by Abraham Hicks. And so I thought we could ask the angels to come forward and help us as we navigate the gap of creation. And so, my beautiful friends, just take some nice deep breaths in and release. And yes, those are the birds that we've been hearing every morning here. They're singing their song in celebration of this moment. And so, angels, I ask that you come in and support each one of us as we navigate the experience of co-creation, helping us come into the full cycle, including the gap of creation and those beautiful moments of birth when a dream is made real. Angels, I ask that you infuse us with resiliency, with joy, with divine engagement, to make it easy and joyful so that we may rejoice as our visions become real in the most wonderful of ways. And dear ones, just receive these blessings from the angels. And I feel the angels coming in, and they are saying that they want to encourage us, that they are here right now to encourage you to keep moving forward. That in this linear timeline, we must move along expanses of time, and we blend together the physical and non-physical. And this is why inspired action is often required to bring our dreams into reality. And that you have it within you to do this thing. They give us the gentle reminder that small action steps imbued with big intention produce even bigger results. So now is not the time to withdraw or hold back. This is the moment to allow yourself to engage with intention, allowing your lightness of spirit to influence all that you desire to create. That resources and support and love are with you now and continue to flow to you. They remind us that your spirit, your beautiful spirit, is mighty. And this is a wonderful time for you to allow your creative endeavors, your light-inspired endeavors, that which brings you joy, to allow this to flow through you into your life and into this world. Give yourself permission to create beauty in this world. Give yourself permission to bring forward that which inspires the hearts of others. You are an instrument of light. You are an instrument of hope. You are an instrument of divine love in this world. So allow yourself to co-create in this earthly realm, blending together the divine and the human, blending together heaven and earth. And you will bring such love into this world. So do not be disappointed or intimidated by the gap of creation. It is part of the life cycle of experiences here on this earth, especially for those of us that are visionaries. And I don't mean visionaries in that we know how to navigate to Mars. I mean visionaries in that we can see beyond this moment. We are creatives, we are inspirers, we are healers, we are wise ones, we are dreamers. And it is through these gifts that we can see beyond the reality of this moment. So take some big deep breaths in and allow this beautiful angelic light to find you where you are. Goodness is flowing to you right now. And your angels will be helping you as you sleep, as you are in the astral realm. They will help you connect with inspiration and resourcefulness and energy to help you on your way. So thank you, angels, for this beautiful infusion of love. Thank you for the bird song that reminds us that beauty is present in every moment. And I thank the angels for the gift of you. Beautiful, magical, mystical you. This world is better because you are here, and I am so deeply grateful for the gift of you. So you go ahead and rest. And while you do, your angels will be with you. And I'm going to tell you a story. So for story time, I thought I would share with you what I am very gently calling scenes from a marriage, and more specifically, scenes from my marriage. And it's not going to be awkwardly intimate or anything like that. I'm married to a wonderful man, and there are some experiences that we have that I don't know, I find them entertaining. And so I thought I would share with you some of these stories. And I was going to start off by telling you about how one of the rules of our marriage is that my husband is always right. And before you allow yourself to get horrified because that sounds misogynistic or paternal or, any of those dark things, that is not why he is always right. He is always right because my husband is profoundly intuitive, psychic, clairvoyant, whatever word you want to use for it, but he does not know that that is what is happening when he brings forward a piece of information or a suggestion. So throughout the years of our marriage, it has happened frequently that my husband will say something or suggest something, and being the opinionated person that I am, I will make him wrong. I will say, no, that's not right. And if we wait long enough, it turns out he is. And so now when he says things, I just go, okay, okay, all right, you're always right. There was just a really simple example of that this weekend. My husband had to participate in a trade show for his work. And I came at the end of the last day to help him and his coworkers pack everything up. And I always like to find good parking. Once you learn about the parking angels, right, all you have to do is ask the angels for help with a parking space. I've become pretty dependent about always getting really good parking, and I wanted to park close to the venue. And my husband said, no, don't park there. Once the show ends, all the big trucks are going to come in and block everything. Park over here. We'll have to walk farther, but it'll be better in the long run. So that's just a really simple observation. I don't mean to make that sound like he's super psychic. But had it not been my husband giving me that information, I would have been like, no, it's fine. I'm a good driver and I can finagle things. I'm going to move up further. I'm going to move up closer because I don't want to walk as far. But because my husband said it, I said, okay. And once I got there, there was plenty of parking up closer. And I kept saying to him, are you sure I can't move the car up? Because we had a lot to load. And he kept saying, no. And then I had to keep reminding myself that my husband is always right. And so I finally just stayed where I was. And sure enough, as soon as the show was over, it was like a colony of trucks and cars collapsed into all the spaces where I thought I would be okay. And I clearly would not have been, and I would have had to wait and get frustrated about leaving. So that's just a super simple thread of how this works. And actually that was the catalyst to inspire me to share these stories with you. So I have even better stories. That's not the best story, I promise you. That's just a very ordinary example of what happens on a day-to-day basis in our life together. So I first want to share with you when I knew my husband was magical. And it was when we met. I'm not going to share with you about our whole meeting story because that's a whole other episode that I will do at some point. But we met at a shaman workshop in San Francisco. And part of the invitation where they told us what to bring to the workshop, they said to bring a rock, and a rock that was about the size of your hand. And I went to the workshop with a couple girlfriends, and my girlfriends and I, we went to a beach in San Francisco, and we each picked a rock off the beach, and we came to the workshop. And one of the first partnered experiences in the workshop, the instructor said, pick a partner, but you can't pick someone you already know. And so I couldn't work with one of my girlfriends, and Wes and I just kind of looked at each other from across the room. There were maybe 60 people in the room. And we just sort of, gave that nod, and we were going to work together. And the exercise was to read your rock. It's a shamanic practice where you look to the rock for messages. And as I looked around the room, most people had ordinary pedestrian rocks. But not Wes. Wes is holding this big piece of what I came to know as lapis, but this big, beautiful blue rock. And I looked at him and I said, what is that? And he said, it's lapis. And I thought, okay, what is this magic? Here I am with my ordinary ocean rock, and he is here with this beautiful blue rock. First sign that he was magical. And I should also mention that morning in the hotel room, my girlfriend and I pulled angel cards. Because of course we did, right? We always pulled angel cards. And I pulled the beloved card out of the Archangel deck. And I remember just having a giggle with my girlfriend. I'm like, oh my God, you think he's in there? The answer would be yes. And he's wearing a blue shirt. So Wes and I did the first process together, and he had this beautiful blue rock. And as he was sharing what he was sharing, I just had this deep knowingness in me that this man was profoundly kind and loving. I just knew that about him. And he started talking. I don't remember the context, but he was sharing about his gifts, because part of his question was, how can he share his gifts in the world? And he was sharing in his gifts that he star charts, that he can see how things work together, and he can see how to help people get from one point to another. And at that point in my life, I could feel the dream of illuminating souls in my heart, but I had no idea how to get there. And all I could think of was, I need that. I need that. Please tell me how to get where I am going. And I just remember in that process that we were doing together in class of having this deep sense of loving from him and wisdom, and that he had this ability to star chart things. He can just see things. He knows how to get from here to there. He reads energy. He reads people. He's a healer. And I will also say he felt like home. He felt like home. And so there's a lot more to the story about how we ultimately found our way into marriage. And so I'm not going to be sharing that part, but it's awesome. And yes, we got married. He was my person. And he star charts and he sees things. And he knows how to help me and others get from here to there. But here's the thing. Just because someone knows how to help you get from here to there, it does not mean that we immediately fall into cooperation with that. Right? We have to work our process. We have to navigate our stuff. And so over the years, what has happened is Wes will give me a piece of information and I will then argue with him. Because in that moment, I am not yet a vibrational match to the information he's sharing with me. So I talked about Abraham Hicks in the first part, where we were talking about the gap of creation. Another Abraham Hicks-ism that my guides use all the time is, a messenger can only deliver a message to someone who's a vibrational match to the message. Just take that one in for a moment, because it's deep. Right? How often have you given a piece of advice to a friend or a loved one and they can't hear you? They're not ready to hear you yet, even though what you're saying is steeped in wisdom. And maybe think about the times that people have shared things with you that you are not ready to hear yet. So I thought I would share with you a couple of examples of how this works between Wes and I. So I remember years ago, so this is a little snippet from the Plus Size Diaries, which is when I share with you about my experiences in a plus size body. When I met Wes, I had the lap band surgery. So I had released a lot of weight and I had a lap band and I was incredibly happy with it. It was just such a blessing. And one of the things about a lap band is food can get stuck. You can't overeat with a lap band because, without getting into too much of the specifics, it's like a cork in a bottle and food just gets stuck and it's very unpleasant. And so often I would be engaged in a conversation. You know, if you're out to dinner with people, back when I used to go out for dinner with people in a restaurant, I don't do that anymore, but I would not be paying attention to what was happening with my body. And I would be talking and I would be ready to take another bite. And Wes would just gently move my plate away from me, which to someone who didn't understand what was going on, that would seem creepy and controlling. But Wes was feeling and sensing what was going on in my body. And so I would get annoyed, and then I would look at him, and he would look at me, and I would tune into my body, and I would like, oh, okay. He was always right about it. He always was right. And so we often laugh about that. He's like, I don't know what your family would think when they would see me moving your plate away. And to somebody outside of us, that would seem really creepy and controlling, but it wasn't. It was an act of kindness because he could feel what was happening in my body. He's that connected. So keeping on that track of the lap band, I had to sadly get it removed in 2008 because I had a complication. And that was very sad for me because I had no protection against my eating habits and gaining weight. And so I was gaining weight quickly. And my husband, brilliant, wise healer man that he is, says, you know, part of what you're going to have to accept is that your body has a set point. And once you hit that set point, it's going to stabilize. Well, everything I had ever learned about obesity said this is not true. I just have to eat less and move more, and this is my fault because in 2008, that is what I believed, heart and soul. This was absolutely my fault, and I should be able to manage this, and what is wrong with me? So this idea of a set point was crazy talk. So I made him very, very wrong about that. And he never brought it up again. Poor guy. He's got a photographic memory. So he could probably tell you where we were when we had that conversation because he remembers things so clearly. So fast forward a couple of years, and I am listening to the Weight Loss Surgery podcast with Rieger Cortell. And she has a scientist, Randy Seeley, on her show, who is talking about set point biology and obesity. And he is talking about all of this information that reflects exactly what was said, that our autonomous nervous systems maintain our weight in the same way they maintain our core body temperature and our blood pressure, that there is something going on in our physiology that makes it very, very difficult to release weight, that it's not about maintaining a certain number of calories. It's not that those things can't have influence, but something more is going on. And I remember listening to that episode. I was in an airplane, I was flying, and I was crying. Because I thought everything he says is describing me. Everything he's talking about is what I experience. And it was this profoundly healing and grief-filled moment of realizing that how I had been holding my journey in consciousness was based in misinformation. And that Wes had been right. Because as someone who has battled weight my entire life, the idea that my autonomous nervous system was somehow misprogrammed, because I don't have any control over that. Right? I don't really have a way to shift my body temperature easily on a regular basis. Right? It's like we are not at a place scientifically where we know what to do about that. Weight loss surgery can help. These new medications can help. But that's a whole other conversation. But When Wes gave me that piece of information, I could not hear him. And I thought he was wrong. I wanted him to be wrong because I wanted this to be something I could fix. And it's interesting, it's come back around for me again because I'm at the place with my weight loss surgery. I have since had the gastric sleeve and it's been amazing. But most people who have weight loss surgery experience a certain amount of regain. Not because they're being destructive, but because the autonomous nervous system, whatever balances, set point in biology and satiety and all of that, begin to shift again. And I am in that experience right now. And I'm not saying I don't have any influence over it, but I don't have 100% influence over it. My body's adjusting. And I'm having to find my way through it with love and compassion and awareness. So that's one example of Wes being right. I want to share another one with you. So, somewhere around 2015, Wes decides that we need to get a treadmill. He wanted the treadmill for me. I didn't want a treadmill. And it wasn't like you should get exercise equipment because you need to exercise. This was just a Wesism. He knew. He knew we needed to get a treadmill. I did not want a treadmill. I was like, I'll go outside to walk. I'll go to the gym. It'll be fine. He says, no, we need to get one. Poor guy. He needs to battle me. I'm a Taurus and I'm very stubborn. So he just had this. He knew we needed to get a treadmill. So we go to a specialty exercise store. And another thing about Wes, and it was similar to my dad, was when you buy something, you buy the best of something so that it lasts. Not the best of something because it's prestige, but you buy the best of something so that it's good and it lasts. Whereas I am a bargain shopper. And Wes's philosophy is you pay more money now so that you're not buying it again in 5 years, which was how my dad was. So very similar in that way. So we go to this exercise store and there's a treadmill and it's very expensive. And I'm thinking, we don't need to spend this much money on a treadmill. This treadmill over here for $1,000 less is just fine. And of course, Wes says, no, we need this treadmill. And then he also picks out an elliptical, which I wasn't planning on using, but he wanted to use. So we wind up spending somewhere around $5,000 in 2015, which to us was a frickload amount of money. It was a lot of money. And I think I financed it on a credit card at the time or something. And I said, it'll be worth it. It'll be fine. So we get these 2 big pieces of exercise equipment. And we live in a very small house. So we have a 2-bedroom plus a bonus room. And the bonus room is my office. And the second bedroom we call the angel room. And it was a room for his kids for a while. And then it was his music room. And then when we bought the exercise equipment, Wes said it doesn't need to be the music room anymore. We'll put the exercise equipment in there. And we're going to set it up with a television so you can watch TV while you exercise. He had this whole vision for me. Again, he wasn't pushing me to exercise. It wasn't you need to exercise. It was just this whole vision he had. And he knew we needed to implement it. So now we have, in a very small home, the second bedroom dedicated to these 2 large pieces of exercise equipment, which basically we're not using. So, I am crappy girl for years, making him so wrong. See, we didn't need this. I go to the gym. I'm not using it. We should just sell it. I can be very crabby about things. I'm still paying it off. Not anymore. I've paid it off since. But, at the time I was still paying on this exercise equipment. I had a membership at Planet Fitness, so I was going there to exercise, and I wasn't doing it at home. And so here this exercise equipment sat and sat and sat some more. And then you know what happened? This thing called the pandemic happens, 2020. So this thing called the pandemic happened, and we're staying at home. And I was fortunate to get scheduled for my bariatric surgery at the end of July 2020, which is when I got my gastric sleeve. And coming out of anesthesia, it's really important to walk so that the lungs recover. And we have this treadmill, handy dandy, wow, voila, a treadmill's at our house with the television. And so, recovering from surgery, I get on the treadmill very, very slowly each day to help my lungs work. And then I would stay on it a little longer and a little bit faster. And it is now May of 2023. And I will have you know that I have not missed a day on the treadmill unless we were traveling since whatever that would have been, July 30th or August 1st, whenever I was home from the hospital. I have not missed a day on the treadmill since then. And I have not missed a day because I am an all or nothing girl. I either have to get on the treadmill every single day, or I need to get on the treadmill no days. It's the same thing with sugar. I either can have no sugar, or I can have all the sugar. So, this treadmill has been a profound gift and has paid big dividends. And especially during the pandemic when we weren't going anywhere. I had a treadmill. Back then you couldn't buy a treadmill because they were all sold out, right? Everybody was buying treadmills. So I would say to my husband, "You're brilliant. You're a genius. How did you know we were going to need this?" So this poor guy had spent several years being made so wrong by me. He was absolutely right. We needed to buy it. We needed to give up a room in our home so we would have it. And because of that decision, I have been on the treadmill every single day for 2.5 years. Haven't missed a day unless I was traveling. And those are 2 examples of my husband being right, but I have hundreds of more examples like that. He sees something and he knows something, and I am not yet a vibrational match to what he is seeing and knowing. But he doesn't yet know that he is seeing or knowing something. Does that make sense for any of you that are intuitive? Like, I pretty much know when I'm getting an intuitive hit. And I'll say, I kind of have an intuitive hit about that. So to me, it gets moved into a different category on the board of life. Versus just this claircognizant thing that says we need to get a treadmill. Which makes no sense to me. So I've really learned, hopefully, to lean into these moments. We've just done some upgrades to our home. Again, I didn't know that I didn't have the knowingness, it's a better way to say it. I didn't have the knowingness that these were necessary. But Wes said, yes, they are. I was like, okay, let's do it. Because I have learned to lean into these epiphanies he has about when something is needed. And he also, he has been so wonderful in supporting me. We're wired differently. Wes I think in some ways, Wes is more courageous than I am. I really get caught up in my feelings. I feel everything. And he tends to be a bit more binary. So a better way to say that would be, some people see in black and white and some people see in gray. I see in black and white and gray, and Wes sees in black and white. And so I get really infused with emotional material. Like I get flooded emotionally. And there are times I can't see the forest for the trees. And Wes can almost always see clearly when I cannot. So an example of that is that over the years, with my business, one of the hardest parts to navigate are those moments when I am scheduling a new class and that gap of creation, remember we talked about earlier, the gap of creation between when I announce the class and when, hopefully, God willing, people register and the class begins. That is the hard part for me. Imagine sending out invitations to a party and the RSVPs don't come in until 12 hours before the party starts, right? How you would be in consciousness. That's where I go emotionally when I'm scheduling a class. And thank God for Wes. If it wasn't for Wes, I would not be here with you because I would have perhaps closed up shop a while ago, and just even saying that out loud terrifies me. Because never once has Wes said, pull your energy back. Maybe you should get a job. He has always seen the vision for illuminating souls in my work in the world. And he has always supported me. So when I'm in the gap of creation with a class, for example, he will say, just show up. Your job is to show up. And then when I really need it, he'll say, you're going to have 4 people register. He'll see the number. And I'll be like, are you sure? I don't think they're coming. What if nobody shows? He goes, you're going to have 4 people. And sure enough, 4 people register. That's an example. It's not always 4 people, however many people he's seen. And he's always right. So he is my grounding cord in the best way possible in this world. He sees the vision and he knows how to get there. And it's interesting. He often will share about his admiration for the work that I get to do in the world. You know, he says, you make a difference every day. And I try to explain to him that he does as well, because he is a part of everything that I do. He is the foundation of my life, of my Earth Girl life. And he makes it possible for me to show up and have courage and have someone to lean into and have someone who has faith in me and the vision of what I want to bring into the world. And he holds the light for me. So if I hold the light for you, it is because he holds the light for me. And I just feel so blessed. He's like my own personal wisdom counsel. And it always amuses me to share that he is always right. Again, not because of some misogynistic, twisted thing. He just sees things and knows things, and I am not always on the same page with him yet. It may take me years to come onto the same page. So when we are planning for things that are years ahead, I have learned to surrender into his vision. So when we're talking about estate planning, when we're talking about taking care of our house, so that when we're older, it'll be suitable for us, I just listen to him now. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to argue. You've been right about everything else. And so I love being married to a beautiful, magical, mystical, loving man. I don't know how I got so blessed to get to have a life with him, but he is my absolute favorite person on this planet. And I just feel so lucky to get to live a lifetime together. And so I'm glad to share him with you. He's a good guy. I will also share for those of you who've never met him. So remember where I shared with you that he brought this beautiful bright blue rock into that shaman workshop? Well, he loves bright colors, so he wears bright Hawaiian shirts every day. And he loves being bright. I just love that about him. He's this beautiful, bright, shiny person. And perhaps one day you'll get to meet him, because he's awesome. We used to teach classes together all the time, but we've pulled back on that because his work schedule's gotten a little heavier, but we'll teach again. And the thing you should know is if we wind up teaching together again, he typically holds space. He doesn't talk as much. He kind of whispers in my ear, but he reads the energy, and we're a really good team. So in the future, you might see some offerings from the two of us, because he is amazing at running energy and seeing how lines of energy weave together. So I am here because he is here with me. It's a little behind the scenes glimpse into the foundation of my life. So, scenes from our marriage of Laurel and Wes, Bleadon-Maffei. And thank you for letting me share this with you. And thank you for letting me share him with you. He's a very sweet guy. You'd like him a lot. And so, my beautiful friends, I wish you a good rest. I wish you love. I wish you well-being, and I wish you inspiration. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to be with you, and we'll connect again soon. I love you. Thank you.